Field note number 44. The problem wasn't the sitter, it was the plan. How force majeure, safety decisions, and missing backup plans collide in real world pet care. A few months ago, during Winter Storm Fern, I wrote in field note number 30, while conditions were still unfolding, no analysis, no conclusions, just a reminder to notice the signals, those small moments where we think, I should have, I wish I had, next time I will. And this is what next time, because those signals weren't failures. They were indicators of how our systems, contracts, expectations, and planning didn't fully account for reality. A pet parent recently took to social media to vent 3 full paragraphs about her pet sitter. Not because her sitter failed to show up, and not because the pets were harmed. The issue was something else entirely. During Winter Storm Fern, a declared state of emergency with untreated roads and widespread shortages of basic travel necessities like rock salt, the sitter made a decision. She chose safety. The complaint centered around shortened visits, 15 minutes at a time, not what I paid for, not what I expected. The pet parent emphasized that she had hired a professional specifically so she wouldn't have to rely on the neighbors. The expectation was clear: consistency, regardless of conditions. But that expectation rests on a flawed assumption. The professional service remains fixed, even when the environment does not. During the storm, the sitter reached out to request authorization to involve a neighbor, an attempt to create a secondary access point when conditions made travel unsafe. The response wasn't relief, it was frustration, because the original plan had intentionally excluded neighbors. The entire care model depended on one person maintaining access under conditions where access itself was compromised. And that's a single point of failure. Beginning on January 23rd, President Trump began issuing emergency declarations. And those declarations continued through Monday, January 26th, as a major winter storm moved through the entire East Coast. When that point is stressed by weather, infrastructure, or safety constraints, the system doesn't adapt. It narrows. What looks like a service failure is often a planning failure. The legal concept for this, force majeure, it refers to unforeseeable, uncontrollable events like natural disasters or declared emergencies that prevent normal performance of a contract. When those conditions exist, the standard doesn't remain business as usual. It shifts to what is reasonably possible under the circumstances. Force majeure doesn't mean care stops. It means care adapts. Most pet sitters market themselves on one word: reliability. It's everywhere on the websites, profiles, introductions. Reliable care, dependable service, someone you can count on. But reliability, as it's often presented, assumes stable conditions, clear roads, predictable access, and normal operations. That's not reliability. That's consistency under ideal circumstances. Real reliability is tested when the conditions are not ideal, when roads are unsafe, access is compromised, and continuing as planned introduces risk. In those moments, reliability isn't measured by whether the sitter shows up exactly as scheduled. It's measured by whether they make sound decisions that preserve safety while maintaining essential care. Sometimes that means adapting, sometimes that means shortening visits, sometimes that means activating a backup plan, and sometimes it means not proceeding at all when conditions make it unsafe. That's not unreliability, that's professional judgment. If your definition of reliability requires perfect conditions, it isn't reliability, it's a best case scenario. In this case, the sitter did not abandon care. She modified it, shortened visits, reduced exposure time, maintained essential care tasks. That's not neglect, that's risk mitigation. Because a sitter stranded in a ditch helps no one, and an injured sitter creates a secondary emergency. This is where clarity matters. In my own contracts, I define what I call a code red event, a clear trigger point where standard operations shift due to safety, infrastructure, or environmental conditions. Clients are responsible for maintaining an emergency care plan for their pets in the event of severe weather, natural disaster, or other conditions that prevent safe access to their home. Finicky will make reasonable efforts to provide care during code red conditions. However, services are not guaranteed when travel or property access is deemed unsafe. Clients are required to designate a trusted local contact, neighbor, friend, or family member who has access, the ability to gain access, and can assume care responsibilities if finicky is unable to safely reach the property. That structure does one thing. It removes a single point of failure. It builds in redundancy, a secondary caregiver, a defined trigger for operational change, a shared understanding that care is measured by outcome, not minutes on a clock. Because time is a metric, care is an outcome. If those expectations are not defined in advance, clients will default to assuming nothing changes when severe conditions do. And when reality forces adaptation, it will feel like a failure, even when it isn't. So what's one thing you expect from your pet sitter? Consistency in minutes, or consistency in judgment when it matters most?